Hi and welcome to another Seeing Double video. I'm Garden Girl Jen Gallacher, and today I'm going to show you how I like to cut up 3x4 cards to use them as a grid pattern on my layout. So first I'm starting with a 3x4 card sheet from Echo Park paper, and rather than cut these out, I am going to use this back side, which is kind of a very light grid side. So if you like journaling cards, but you also like the back pattern paper, make sure that you buy 2 of those kinds of sheets. I always determine if I'm getting 2 if I like both sides of the paper. To the bottom of this pattern paper, I'm going to add a strip from a Simple Stories for 3x4 journaling card sheet, and I'll show you the cards I use later. Now for this sheet, I cut out the journaling cards first, and then with what pattern paper was left over, I cut this strip at the bottom. Now for my journaling, I'm going to use a Technique Tuesday stamp set, and I'm going to use this one that says So Totally Alive, and I'm going to use some pink stamping ink, and I'm just going to stamp it right above that diagonal strip of pattern paper. And because it's a grid, I can use the grid pattern to firmly stamp the journaling. So there you can see it's just very, very subtle. Now I'll show you the patterns that I cut from this Simple Stories pattern paper. This is a 3x4 card sheet, and it had little bingo cards on it, and they came in colors that you can see down here. And I am going to build the grid layout using these pattern papers. So then for each of the grids, I'm going to decorate them. Basically the concept is that you're going to treat each grid as an individual element on your page, and you'll decorate it. So the first thing I'm going to add is a number paper clip, and I'll be sure and link you to all of these products on the 2-piece page that coordinates with this. From the Pure collection from Crate Paper, I've cut these little tags from a tag cutout pattern paper, and I just added a little bit of twine to the edge of it, punched out the hole and added the twine. Then in matching pink, this is a Bella Boulevard washi tape. Just going to add some tape at the bottom here. And then I am loving the sequin trend right now, and so I have a couple of pink sequins from an upcoming Teresa Collins collection and a silver one from Studio Calico. Jenny Bolin also has some as well, and I like to adhere these with small glue dots. They fit perfectly behind the sequin. So if you prefer a runner adhesive or a liquid adhesive, they will work as well. I've also machine stitched through sequins before. So there you can see I'm starting to decorate the squares. Now there are also other elements that come in 3x4 sizes, like this Elle Studio frame. And I've pre-cut a photo in a square to fit inside this frame. And before I add the photo, I'm going to wrap some of that white crochet twine around the frame several times and tie it into a bow, just to give this frame a little bit of texture. You can wrap it around as many times as you want. Baker's twine is a little bit thicker. Cording is an option, as well as jute. But I just like adding just a little bit of texture to the sides of these kinds of frames. Again, I'm going to tie it into a bow. You could tie it into a knot, and then you can just trim off the excess pieces. Now to mount the photo behind, I'm going to put some dots right in the corner of each of these frame corners. And then I'll adhere it directly to the photo. You just want to make sure that the photo is centered within that frame. And then once I've done that, I can just easily add regular adhesive. Now rather than do a perfect grid where everything is aligned, I am going to mix it up and put some elements higher and some lower. You could tilt them and make them a little bit askew. It's completely up to you. For the next element, I'm going to use another Elle Studio frame and a photo. And again, I'll adhere these with glue dots. Glue dot in each corner. And then I'll attach the photo to the frame. And before I punched out each photo, I made sure that I measured where the center of the hole would be so that I knew that I would be able to see all my photos. I didn't want to cut off any part of the important part of the photos. Also from the Pure collection, I cut out a pink tag, which I tied in a knot, and a green tag, which I tied in a bow. And we are going to place these behind this photo. And we'll layer them a little bit. This is kind of a loose grid design. If you wanted something a little bit more strict, a little bit more tight, then you would want to align all of your elements. Then for the title of the layout, I'm going to use these fun Heidi Swapp. They're acrylic, or they're just slightly see-through, and I'm going to spell out the word love. Again, I'm just going to use glue dots to adhere them to the layout. If you have a sturdy needle, you can machine stitch through these elements, but for today I'm just going to use glue dots. And the color scheme was completely inspired by the diagonal stripe pattern paper at the bottom of the layout. So I tried to find elements that matched. And I just pulled from Elle Studio, Simple Stories, Echo Park, Heidi Swapp, just whatever I had in my stash that matched. You can overlap letters, you can do them in a row, however you like. We've just spelled out the word love. Again, another photo frame from Elle Studio and a photo. I tried to use my photos in odd numbers, so 1 or 3, or else I'll create a large grid of 2 photos that really make a statement. So I try to think about and select photos from my pictures that best tell the story, and these were 3 of my favorite photos. Another journaling card, and you can find these like on the back of this that actually have space for journaling. Sometimes the journaling cards come solid like this, and then you can decorate them however you want. Again, you can see I'm not perfectly aligning items. This is a fun slide frame from crepe paper, and I'm going to add some glue dots to the back of this as well. I love how frames frame elements, whether it's a sticker or another chipboard element. You can do whatever you want. I had this chipboard bird. I'm not even sure what collection it's from, but I really liked it, and it was in the same teal blue that I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to the top of the frame. And you can see how I'm just layering elements right on top of each other. Then I'm going to take some epoxy dots and just add a few to this little grid just to decorate it a little bit more. And then across the bottom of both of these 2 journaling card and frames, I'm going to add this Heidi Swapp see-through banner. And it is in a nice polka dot pink, which matches the pink, the light bubblegum pink on the rest of the layout. And it was actually a leftover from another project, and it just worked perfectly for what I wanted here. Then I'm going to bring in some buttons that I've tied with twine, just to give it a little bit more texture and dimension. You'll notice at the bottom of that yellow frame, you could add journaling about the date and the place. I'm just going to leave that text as is. I'm not even going to worry about how it looks without filling in the text. And then for the final square, I'm going to use another 3x4 card. It says Together. And again, it's another bingo card. You don't have to use all the elements from the same collection. You could use it from any collection. The 3x4 cards are standard. They work well in Project Life or Photo Freedom pockets, but you can also use them on layouts. So I've pre-cut and punched some pink pattern paper, and that pink pattern paper is from the new Cut and Paste collection from My Mind's Eye. And then I want to add some more of those fun little sequins. So again, we'll use glue dots to adhere them. So you can see by selecting some 3x4 cards that you like, you can easily put together a grid layout. And by treating each of the 3x4 cards or frames as an individual element, you can decorate them however you want, and then it creates a cohesive layout. Now let's use the same embellishments and pattern paper to create a bonus project. So I'm going to use the same pattern paper, the cut and paste pattern paper and the Simple Stories pattern paper, and I've just taken a sheet of cardstock and folded it in half, and I'm going to mount the pink dot pattern paper on the center of the card. And at the bottom of the card, I'm going to add some of that leftover diagonal pattern paper right on the bottom, and it perfectly aligns with the pink pattern paper. Then I still have some leftover journaling cards, and I chose to use this smile one. You'll notice that on my layout, a lot of the journaling cards were more solid, but this one is a white background. So there are usually a lot of options when you are selecting journaling cards. So we'll just slightly overlap it. And then I'm going to use a different stamp from the stamp set I've been using. I'm going to use the Nothing Better. And again, I'm going to use some pink stamping ink in the same color. Just ink up the stamp. And some of my cards get sentiments and some do not, so it's up to you. We'll just stamp this right at the top. Show you what it looks like. It's just very, very subtle. Another one of those The Pure tags that I've cut and I've added twine to. You can see it has kind of a diamond grid on the back. When I am prepping for these Seeing Double pieces, I usually cut and prep everything ahead of time, which is a good idea if you're doing a double page layout or an album, to cut all of the elements out and prep them, and then you're ready to go. I have some more of that Bella Boulevard pink tape I'm going to add to the bottom of this little tag. And that's another thing, is think about repeating elements when you're doing more than one item, whether it is an album or whether it is a card and a layout. You can just save time by repeating elements or repeating techniques. I'm going to use some leftover little wood veneer people shapes. I've been hoarding these quite a bit. And because I'm using a large girl and a small boy, this is like a mother-son card. And then we're going to add some of those final sequins that I still have left over. And they just add a little bit of shimmer and shine and match the same colors that I was using on the layout. And you can store your sequins however you like. I'll show you how I like to store mine. If there's a particular sequin color like silver that I use a lot, I usually keep them in these little tiny bowls. They're just easy to get to, or you can put them in other kinds of containers like spice containers. So there you have a card using the same embellishments and papers that I used to create the layout. Thank you for joining me for today's Seeing Double video. Be sure to visit the 2-Piece website for the complete supply list for creating these projects.